The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They built rockets, sent probes to distant planets, and dreamed of the day they would finally meet other beings from across the universe. That day came in the year 2298. A massive ship appeared near Jupiter, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It hung in space like a metal mountain, covered in lights that blinked in patterns no one could understand. The whole world held its breath. Scientists, politicians, and ordinary people all stared at their screens, waiting to see what would happen next. The aliens called themselves the Valanthi. They were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. They spoke through translators that turned their clicking sounds into human words, and they brought news that changed everything. Humanity was not alone. The galaxy was full of life. 12 great civilizations had joined together to form something called the Galactic Concord. They controlled trade, kept peace, and decided which species were allowed to expand beyond their home worlds. Earth was invited to join, but not as an equal. Commander Daniel Carter was 32 years old when the Concord representatives came to Earth. He stood in the back of the Great Assembly Hall in Geneva, watching as the alien ambassadors explained the rules. Humans would be given observer status. They could watch and learn, but they could not vote. They could not expand to other star systems. They could not receive advanced technology. "You are young," the lead Valanthi ambassador said. His name was Zethral, and he spoke with the calm confidence of someone who had never been challenged. "Your species has only had space travel for a few centuries. The Concord has existed for over 100,000 years. You must prove yourselves before you can be trusted with more." Daniel felt his hands curl into fists at his sides. He looked around the room and saw the same anger on other faces. But what could they do? Earth had 3 small space stations and a handful of ships that could barely reach Mars. The Valanthi ship alone could probably destroy every military on the planet without breaking a sweat. So humanity accepted the terms. They smiled and nodded and said thank you for the opportunity. And inside, they burned with shame. The years that followed were hard. Earth sent representatives to Concord stations, where they were treated like children at an adult party. Other species laughed at human technology. They mocked human art and music. They called humans clever animals who had somehow stumbled into space before they were ready. Daniel rose through the ranks of Earth's United Space Fleet. He became a captain, then an admiral. He married a woman named Linda and had 2 children. He watched his hair turn gray and his bones grow tired. And through it all, he never forgot the look on Zethral's face that day in Geneva. The look that said humans were nothing, that they would never be anything. His grandson, a boy named Marcus, used to sit on Daniel's knee and listen to stories about the old days. Stories about a time before the aliens came, when humans thought they were special, when they believed they could do anything if they worked hard enough. "Will we ever be equal to them, grandfather?" Marcus asked one night. Daniel looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Concord was making decisions about humanity's future without asking for their input. Somewhere out there, species that had never known struggle were deciding what humans could and could not do. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I hope so. I hope that one day, we will show them what we really are." Daniel died at the age of 94. He never saw that day come. But the dream did not die with him. It passed from generation to generation, a quiet fire that burned in the hearts of every human who had ever been made to feel small. Then, in the year 2347, everything changed. It started with a message from Earth's top scientists. They had discovered something incredible, something that could change humanity's fate forever. Deep in the structure of space itself, there was another dimension, a place where the normal rules did not apply. A place where time flowed differently, where physics could be bent and shaped like clay. They called it the Fold. The governments of Earth met in secret. They argued for months about what to do. Some wanted to share the discovery with the Concord, to prove that humans were worthy of respect. Others said that the Concord would just take the technology for themselves and leave humanity with nothing. In the end, they made a choice that would echo through history. On a quiet night in October, Every human on Earth received a message. It told them to prepare for a journey. It told them that humanity was leaving, not running away, but stepping back to grow stronger. It told them that one day they would return. The fold generators activated. Space bent and twisted around the entire solar system. The sun, the planets, the moons, and every single human being vanished from the normal universe in the blink of an eye. On Concord Station Prime, alarms screamed as sensors went dark. Ambassador Zethral rushed to the observation deck, his shimmering skin pale with shock. Where Earth's sun had been, there was nothing. No explosion, no debris, just empty space. What happened? Someone asked. Zethral stared at the void for a long time. Finally, he turned away. They are gone, he said. The humans are gone. The Concord sent ships to investigate. They found nothing. No trace of the solar system, no evidence of what had happened. It was as if humanity had never existed at all. In the years that followed, theories spread across the galaxy. Some said humans had destroyed themselves with some terrible weapon. Others said they had been swallowed by a black hole or wiped out by a cosmic disaster. A few wondered if they had found a way to escape. But those voices were quickly silenced. Such technology was impossible. Everyone knew that. Ambassador Zethral closed humanity's file and archived it in the historical records. A pity, he told the Concord Assembly. They showed some promise, but fragile species rarely survive long in this universe. The galaxy moved on. New crises arose and were solved. New species were discovered and evaluated. Centuries passed, and humanity became nothing more than a story. A cautionary tale about a species that had reached too far and paid the price. No one expected them to come back. No one imagined what they would become, and no one was prepared for what happened next. 600 years had passed since Earth disappeared. Admiral Kira Lawson stood alone on the observation deck of Concord Station Prime, watching cargo ships drift between the massive platforms that circled the station. She was 53 years old, with short gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much disappointment. Kira was human, one of the few thousand left in the galaxy. When Earth vanished, there had been small human colonies scattered across Concord space. Mining outposts, research stations, trading posts. About 12,000 humans had been off-world that night, far from home when the solar system disappeared. They became orphans overnight. The Concord had taken them in, but not out of kindness. Refugee status meant they could stay, but they had no homeworld, no representation, no voice. Over the centuries, they scattered across a dozen planets, mixing with other species, slowly losing their identity. Most young humans did not even speak the old Earth languages anymore. Kira had spent her whole life feeling like she did not belong anywhere. Too human for the aliens. Too changed for the old human traditions. She had joined the Concord fleet because she had nowhere else to go. And she had worked her way up to admiral through sheer determination. But she never forgot where she came from. In her quarters, she kept a small collection of Earth artifacts. Old books, photographs, a flag that had once flown over a city called Boston. Sometimes she would hold these things and wonder what it would have been like to walk on Earth, to breathe its air, to see its blue oceans and green forests. The alert came at 0347 station time. Kira was half asleep when her communicator buzzed. She grabbed it and saw a message marked urgent from the communications center. Strange signal detected. Unknown origin. Human frequencies. She ran. The communications center was chaos when she arrived. Technicians were shouting at each other, pointing at screens, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. A signal was coming from the edge of Concord space, broadcasting on frequencies that had not been used in 600 years. "Play it," Kira ordered. The room fell silent. Then a voice filled the air, speaking in perfect English. The kind of English that Kira had only heard in old recordings. "This is the Terran Ascendancy. We have returned. We come in peace, but we will not be denied." Kira's heart stopped. She gripped the edge of a console to keep from falling. Around her, the technicians stared with wide eyes, They were all too young to understand what this meant. They had not grown up with the stories, the hopes, the dreams of a lost home. But Kira understood. Earth was back. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. Every station, every planet, every ship received the same message. The Concord Assembly called an emergency session. Military fleets were put on high alert, and everyone watched the edge of space, waiting to see what would happen next. They did not have to wait long. The first ship appeared through a tear in space itself. Not a wormhole or a hyperspace jump, but something else entirely. Reality simply opened up, like a curtain being pulled aside, and a vessel emerged that made the largest Concorde dreadnought look like a toy. Then another ship came through. And another. And another. Kira watched from the observation deck as the fleet assembled. Thousands of ships, each one gleaming with technology that made no sense. Their hulls seemed to shift and shimmer, as if they existed in multiple places at once. Their engines burned with light that hurt to look at, and they moved with a grace that should have been impossible for objects of their size. At the head of the fleet was the largest ship of all. It was shaped like a spear, 10 kilometers long, covered in patterns that glowed with soft blue light. Its name was written on the hull in letters that Kira could read: Endurance. A transmission came from the ship, broadcast to all Concorde frequencies. A man's face appeared on every screen in the station. He was human, with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes. He wore a uniform that Kira did not recognize, decorated with symbols that meant nothing to her. "I am Admiral Nathan Cole of the Terran Ascendancy," he said. "I was born on Earth, in a city called Chicago, in the year 2301. I was 46 years old when we entered the fold. I am still 46 years old today." Kira felt tears running down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. "For 600 of your years, we have been gone," Cole continued. "But time moves differently where we went. For us, nearly 50,000 years have passed. 50,000 years of growth, of learning, of becoming something greater than we ever imagined." He paused, and his expression softened. "I know there are humans in conquered space, descendants of those who were left behind. I want you to know that we never forgot you. We never stopped thinking of you, and we have come back to bring you home." The transmission ended, and for a long moment, Kira could not move. Around her, the station buzzed with panic and confusion. Concorde officials rushed back and forth, shouting orders, demanding answers. But Kira just stood at the window, staring at the impossible fleet that hung in space like a promise finally kept. 50,000 years. She could not imagine what humanity had become in that time. What they had learned, what they had built, what they had overcome. But looking at those ships, at that technology that made the Concorde's best look like ancient history, she knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same. A young technician came to stand beside her. He was human too, barely 20 years old, with the mixed features that came from generations of living among aliens. "Admiral," he said quietly, "what do we do now?" Kira looked at him, then back at the fleet. For the first time in her life, she felt something she had never expected to feel: hope. "We wait," she said. "We listen, and we remember who we are." Out in the darkness of space, the Endurance turned slowly toward Concorde Station Prime. Its engines glowed brighter, and it began to move forward. Earth had returned, and it had brought an army. The great chamber of the Concorde Assembly had never been so full. Representatives from all 12 member species crowded into their designated sections. The Volanthes sat in their tall chairs, their shimmering skin flickering with nervous colors. The Korvax warriors stood in rigid formation, their 4 arms crossed over their armored chests. The small, furry Mikari huddled together, whispering in their clicking language. And dozens of other species watched with fear, curiosity, and disbelief. In the center of the chamber, a holographic projector hummed to life. Light gathered and took shape, forming the figure of Admiral Nathan Cole. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking around at the assembled representatives with the patience of a man who had all the time in the universe. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," he said. His voice was calm and polite, but there was something underneath it. Something that suggested he did not need their permission for anything. Ambassador Zethral rose from his seat. He was old now, over 700 years old. His shimmering skin faded and dull. He had been young when Earth disappeared. He had been the one to close humanity's file and call them a failed species. "You cannot be who you claim to be," Zethral said. "Nathan Cole would be over 600 years old. No human lives that long." Cole smiled slightly. "You are correct that no human used to live this long. But we are not what we used to be." "Explain," demanded High Commander Vexnar of the Korvax Imperium. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales like black stone and eyes that burned with suspicion. "Explain how your entire solar system vanished. Explain how you return with ships that should not exist. Explain everything." "Very well," Cole said. "I will tell you the truth, all of it." He began to pace slowly, his holographic form moving through the center of the chamber. 600 years ago, our scientists discovered something hidden in the fabric of reality. A dimension that exists alongside normal space, but separate from it. We called it the Fold. The representatives leaned forward, listening intently. The Fold is difficult to explain to those who have not studied it. Imagine a pocket in the universe, a place where the rules are different. Inside the Fold, time moves at a different speed. Energy behaves in ways that seem impossible from the outside. And physical laws can be shaped by those who understand them. 70s. Quote, Cole stopped pacing and looked directly at Zethral. "We did not run away because we were afraid. We left because we understood something that you did not. The Concord would never let us grow. Your rules would have kept us small and weak forever. We would have spent eternity as second-class citizens, begging for scraps from species that saw us as insects." Zethral's skin flickered with angry colors, but he said nothing. "So we made a choice," Cole continued. "We moved our entire solar system into the Fold. We sealed ourselves away from the galaxy, and we began to evolve." He raised his hand, and images appeared in the air around him. Images of cities that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Ships that could travel between stars in moments. Machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level. People who looked human but moved with impossible grace, their eyes glowing with inner light. What was 600 years to you was nearly 50,000 years to us. 50,000 years of uninterrupted progress. No wars with other species. No restrictions on our research. No one telling us what we could and could not do. The chamber was completely silent. We mastered physics that you cannot imagine. We learned to manipulate time, space, energy, and matter. We changed our own bodies, making ourselves stronger, smarter, longer lived. We built wonders that would take your greatest minds 1,000,000 years to understand. Cole let the images fade and looked around the chamber once more. "And now we have returned, not as the primitive species you once dismissed, not as refugees begging for acceptance. We have returned as something new, something greater." A Mikari representative raised a trembling hand. "What do you want from us?" Cole's expression softened. "We want peace. We want cooperation. We want to take our place in the galactic community, not as subordinates, but as equals." "Equals?" Vexnar laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "You speak of equality while surrounding our station with a fleet that could destroy us all." "The fleet is not a threat," Cole said. "It is a statement. We brought it so that you would understand that we are no longer asking for permission. We are no longer hoping you will treat us fairly. We are telling you how things will be." He stepped forward, and even though he was just a hologram, several representatives flinched back. "The Concord denied us technology because you feared we would become competitors. You limited our expansion because you wanted to keep us contained. You treated us like children because it made you feel powerful." His voice hardened. "Those days are over. We will share our knowledge with any species that wants it. We will help those who have been oppressed by your rules. We will build a new order in this galaxy, one based on cooperation instead of control." Zethral stood again, his old body shaking with emotion. "You speak of peace, but your words sound like conquest." Cole shook his head. "No. Conquest means taking by force. We are not taking anything. We are simply refusing to be denied any longer." He looked at the assembled representatives with something like sadness in his eyes. "You had 600 years to become better, to treat the lesser species with kindness, to share your knowledge and help others grow. Instead, you hoarded your power and crushed anyone who threatened your position." He straightened his shoulders. "We are giving you a chance to change, to join us in building something new. But make no mistake. If you choose to fight us, if you try to destroy what we have become, you will fail. Not because we are cruel, but because we are simply beyond anything you can comprehend." The hologram flickered and began to fade. "You have 1 month to decide. Join us in peace, or stand aside. But do not stand against us. For your own sake." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the representatives began to whisper among themselves. Fear and anger mixed with something else. Something that looked almost like hope. The galaxy was about to change forever, and humanity would lead the way. High Commander Vex Nar had not slept in 3 days. He stood in the war room of his flagship, the Iron Fist, staring at holographic displays that showed the Terran fleet. His 4 massive arms were crossed over his chest, and his black scales seemed to absorb the light around him. The Korvax were warriors. For 10,000 years, they had conquered and dominated. They had crushed rebellions, destroyed enemies, and built an empire through strength and fear. No species had ever challenged them and survived. Until now, Vexnar could not accept what he had seen. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be primitive. They were the species that had disappeared 600 years ago. The species that everyone assumed had destroyed themselves through stupidity or bad luck. They were not supposed to come back with ships that made the Korvax fleet look like toys. "This is unacceptable," Vexnar growled to his advisors. "We cannot allow these creatures to dictate terms to the Concord. We cannot show weakness." His chief advisor, a scarred old warrior named Thalav X, stepped forward carefully. "High Commander, perhaps we should consider their offer. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. A war would be costly." "Costly?" Vexnar spun around, his eyes blazing. "You speak like a coward. The Korvax do not surrender to anyone. We do not bow to humans." He turned back to the display, zooming in on the Terran flagship, the Endurance. "They are bluffing. They must be. No species advances that much in any amount of time. Their ships may look impressive, but they are probably hollow shells designed to frighten us." Thalvex said nothing. He had served Vexnar for 40 years, and he knew better than to argue when his commander was in this mood. Over the next 2 weeks, Vexnar assembled a coalition. The Korvax Imperium was joined by the Dreth Collective and the Varnak Federation, 2 species that shared the Korvax belief in strength through power. Together, they gathered over 4,000 warships, the largest fleet seen in centuries. The Concord Assembly demanded that Vexnar stand down. They warned him that attacking the Terrans would be a mistake. But Vexnar ignored them. He was convinced that one decisive strike would expose the humans as frauds and restore the natural order of the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres was in the middle of her morning training routine when the alarms sounded. She was aboard the Endurance, part of the ship's tactical response team. At 28 years old, she was considered young by Terran standards. Her grandmother had been born on Earth before the fold, making Amy only the 400th generation of her family to live in the pocket dimension. 400 generations, 10,000 years of human history flowed through her veins. Amy ran to the bridge, her enhanced muscles carrying her faster than any old human could have moved. The corridors of the Endurance were calm despite the alarms. Crew members moved with quiet efficiency, their faces showing no fear. Admiral Cole stood at the center of the bridge, watching the display that showed the approaching enemy fleet. 4,000 ships, bristling with weapons, charging toward the Terran position. They actually did it, Cole said softly. I hoped they wouldn't. Amy took her position at the tactical station. Her mind connected to the ship's systems through the neural interface implanted at the base of her skull. Information flooded through her consciousness. Battle plans and probabilities, and tactical options appearing faster than words. Orders, Admiral? She asked. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. Disable them. All of them. Minimal casualties. I want their crews alive. Amy nodded and began to work. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 11 minutes. The Korvax coalition opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of missiles streaked through space. Energy beams powerful enough to crack planets sliced toward the Terran ships. It was the most devastating barrage in galactic military history. It did nothing. Terran shields absorbed the attacks like a sponge absorbing water. The energy was converted and stored, actually making the ships stronger. Not a single Terran vessel was scratched. Then the Terrans responded. Amy guided the targeting systems with her mind, and the Endurance fired weapons that the Korvax could not comprehend. Beams of light that did not travel through space but simply appeared at their destinations. Pulses of energy that passed through shields as if they did not exist. Signals that spoke directly to enemy computers and shut them down with a whisper. One by one, the coalition ships went dark. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines died. Their shields collapsed. But their life support systems kept running, keeping their crews alive. In 11 minutes, 4,000 warships were reduced to floating hulks, completely helpless but completely intact. High Commander Vexnar stood on the bridge of the Iron Fist, surrounded by darkness and silence. His displays were dead. His weapons were useless. His engines would not respond. He had never known defeat. In his entire life, he had never faced an enemy he could not crush. Now he understood what the humans had been trying to tell them. A holographic image appeared in front of him, showing Admiral Cole's face. The human looked tired, not triumphant. High Commander, Cole said. I did not want this. I hoped you would listen. I hoped you would understand. Vexnar said nothing. His scales had gone pale, the color of fear. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in seconds, Cole continued. We could have killed every one of your warriors. But we chose not to. Do you understand why? Still silence. Because we are not what you thought we were. We did not spend 50,000 years learning how to destroy. We spent them learning how to build, how to heal, how to become better. War is easy. Peace is hard. We chose the hard path. Cole leaned closer to the projection. You will be taken into custody. Your ships will be repaired and returned to your governments. Your crews will be sent home. And you will spend the rest of your life learning what we learned. That true strength is not in the power to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when destruction is not needed. The transmission ended. Vexnar stood alone in the darkness for a long time. And for the first time in his life, he began to question everything he had ever believed. On the Endurance, Amy Torres sat back from her station and let out a long breath. Around her, the bridge crew was quiet. No one cheered. No one celebrated. Well done, Admiral Cole said softly to his crew. All of you. He looked out at the disabled fleet, thousands of ships floating helplessly in space. Let's bring them home. The Terran ships moved forward. Not as conquerors, but as rescuers. They used their technology to stabilize the enemy vessels, to provide power and life support, to begin the long process of repair. And across the galaxy, everyone watched. Everyone saw that humanity had returned not with vengeance, but with mercy. The message was clear. Earth was back. And it was more powerful than anyone had imagined. But power without wisdom was nothing. And humanity had learned wisdom the hard way. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see what humanity would do next. After the battle, many species expected revenge. They expected the Terrans to punish the Korvax, to demand territory, to impose harsh terms on the Concord. History taught that victors always took what they wanted. That was how power worked. But the Terrans did something no one expected. They gave. Captain Derek Shaw commanded the first humanitarian mission. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a quiet voice, born 3,000 years after Earth entered the fold. His ship, the Horizon, carried no weapons. Instead, it was filled with medical supplies, food synthesizers, and technology that could save millions of lives. The Valanthi border worlds were dying. A plague had swept through 3 colony planets, killing thousands every day. Valanthi doctors worked desperately, but their medicine could not stop the disease. They had asked the Concord for help, but the response was slow. Resources were limited. Politics got in the way. Derek's ship arrived without being asked. The Valanthi colonial governor, a tired woman named Celira, met him at the landing platform with suspicion in her eyes. Her people had looked down on humans for centuries. She did not understand why they would help. "What do you want in return?" she asked. Derek smiled gently. "Nothing. That is impossible. Everyone wants something. We want to help," Derek said simply. "That is all." Terran medical teams spread across the 3 worlds. They brought technology that could identify the plague at the cellular level. They created treatments that the Valanthi had never imagined. Within 3 weeks, the disease was completely eliminated. Celira stood in a hospital ward that had been full of dying patients just days before. Now the beds were empty. The people had gone home to their families, healed and healthy. "Why?" she asked Derek. "After everything we did to your people, after how we treated you, why would you save us?" Derek looked out the window at the Valanthi city below. Children were playing in the streets again. Families were reunited. Life was returning to normal. "Because we spent 50,000 years learning what matters," he said. "Power means nothing if you do not use it to help others. We have the ability to heal, to build, to create. Using that ability for revenge would make us no better than the species that once oppressed us." He turned to face her. "We are not here to punish you for the past. We are here to build a better future. For everyone." News of the humanitarian mission spread across the galaxy. Other Terran ships followed, bringing aid to worlds that had been ignored by the conquered for centuries. They built hospitals, schools, and infrastructure. They shared technology freely, helping lesser species advance in ways they never could have alone. Dr. Melissa Grant established the first joint research academy on Concord Station Prime. She was a scientist who had devoted her life to understanding the universe, and she believed that knowledge should belong to everyone. The academy welcomed scholars from all species. Valanthi, Korvax, Mikari, and dozens of others came to learn alongside Terran teachers. Technology that had taken humanity millennia to develop was shared openly. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years worked together, united by curiosity and wonder. "This is wrong," some Concord officials complained. "Sharing advanced technology with lesser species will destabilize the galaxy. It will upset the natural order." Melissa laughed when she heard this. The natural order kept billions of people trapped in poverty and ignorance. It served those in power and crushed everyone else. That order deserves to be upset. The transformation was not easy. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight. Some species refused to accept help from humans. Some tried to steal technology instead of learning it honestly. There were conflicts and setbacks, and moments when it seemed like nothing would change. But slowly, steadily, the galaxy began to heal. Admiral Kira Lawson became the first Terran ambassador to the Galactic Concord. She stood before the assembly in the same chamber where humanity had once begged for scraps, where they had been dismissed as clever animals unworthy of respect. Now she stood as an equal. More than an equal. "For 600 years, my people wandered," she said, her voice strong and clear. "We were orphans, caught between worlds, belonging to nowhere. We lived among you, but we were never truly part of you. We kept our traditions alive in secret, passed our stories from parent to child, and never stopped hoping that one day we would find our way home." She paused, looking out at the representatives of a dozen species. The same species that had once looked down on humans with contempt now watched her with something else in their eyes. Respect, admiration, even fear. Earth has returned, Kira continued. But we did not come back to dominate. We did not come back to take revenge. We came back because the galaxy is our home too. Because we believe that all species deserve the chance to grow, to learn, to become something greater than they are. She stepped forward, her hands spread wide. The old ways are over. The time of hoarding power and crushing the weak is finished. We offer you a new path. A path of cooperation, of shared knowledge, of mutual respect. Walk it with us. And together we will build something that has never existed before. A galaxy united not by fear, but by hope. The vote to grant the Terran Ascendancy full membership in the Galactic Concord was unanimous. In the years that followed, historians would call this the beginning of the Great Awakening. Species that had been isolated for millennia began to work together. Conflicts that had lasted for centuries were resolved through negotiation instead of war. Technology advanced faster than anyone had thought possible. As the combined knowledge of dozens of civilizations merged and grew, High Commander Vexnar, once the greatest warrior of the Korvax Imperium, spent his final years teaching at one of Melissa Grant's academies. He told young students about the battle that had changed his life. About the moment when he realized that everything he believed was wrong. Strength is not about destroying your enemies, he would say, his old voice rough but sincere. Strength is about building something that lasts. The humans taught me that. And I am grateful. Admiral Nathan Cole returned to Earth, to the world he had left 50,000 years ago. He walked through streets that had been rebuilt countless times, past monuments to generations he had never known. He was old now, even by Terran standards, his body finally beginning to show the weight of centuries. But he smiled as he watched children playing in a park. Human children, and Valanthi children, and Korvax children, all together, all laughing. This is what we came back for, he said to himself. This is what all those years were for. Above him, the stars shone bright and clear. The same stars that humans had looked at for millions of years, wondering what was out there, dreaming of the day they would find their place among them. That day had finally come. Earth had returned, mightier than anyone had imagined, and the galaxy would never be the same.